In this chapter of how war impacts your investments, we will talk about what happens to those investments during the war. Welcome to our channel. This is One Way Runway and I'm Rahul. So you need to understand that when there is a war in the country that you have your investments in, or you yourself are in that country, the government of that country would ideally want to retain its capital. पकड़ के रखेंगे उसको, and they will want to avoid economic collapse at any cost. So in this chapter, we will discuss about 5 things that will happen during the war based on our understanding of what has happened in the past wars, especially the world wars. There will be trading restrictions linked to your stock portfolio because a situation like a war would lead to panic amongst the investors and would actually lead to the stock market collapsing completely, which may even translate to the economic collapse of that country. You may not be allowed to sell a certain portion of your portfolio where the money goes out of the country. You may not be allowed to buy risky stocks or risky portfolios. So there are a lot of different ways there can be restrictions set upon that particular stock market. One other thing that happened in countries like France, Germany, UK during the World War was that there was a minimum floor set for the stocks in the stock market below which the stock was not allowed to go down. This ensures the stock markets do not crash to the absolute low. This also is a type of restriction on trading of shares. Physical assets like real estate will be a high risk and high reward kind of a situation. So during the war, there is a possibility that a particular real estate investment is bombed. So you'll actually end up losing everything you have invested in that property. For the same reason, the cost of property may be much low because people will want to move out of the country, they may want to liquidate their assets, and again, as I said, it will not be a very lucrative investment. So there will be an opportunity to buy real estate at a low price. Eventually, when the war is over, these prices will go up. But again, as I said, it is a high risk, high reward kind of situation, and it may not be for everyone. One other interesting avenue of investment that I learned about during my research was that the countries where there is a war usually issue bonds to the public. Now this is done exclusively to shore up on capital for that country to fund their own war. But unfortunately, this may be the only viable option for the retail investor in that country. To briefly explain what government issued bonds are, it will basically mean that you're giving loans to the government on which you will earn interest or a yield. So it is not that the government only issues bonds during war. There are also bonds issued on a general basis by the government from a time-to-time basis. One example is the sovereign gold bond. Now it is a very useful mechanism if you want to invest in gold. The last thing I want to bring your attention to is the prevalence or the emergence of a black market for most of the assets in that country. A black market is where there is an offline market which is not really regulated by the government, but assets are bought and sold in that market. Now this assets could be anything. It could be cash, it could be foreign exchange, it could be gold, it could be artwork, it could be any of those assets that can be easily bought and sold. Such black markets will be predominant in the countries where there is a war. That brings us to the end of chapter 2, which is what happens to your investments during the war. I hope there is something you could learn from what has happened in the past, and I really hope this never has to happen in the future. But I see absolutely no harm in knowing about what to do in such situations. With that, I would like to conclude today's video. In comments, please do share with us any particular observation that you had in your research regarding what happens to your investments during war. With that, I'll see you in our next video. Till then, take care and see you soon.